Welcome back to Hypnosis Today, where we explore how people are using hypnosis to achieve remarkable things. If you have just joined us, I have as my second guests Darlene Levasseur Melendez, and she's an honors grad of HMI College of Hypnotherapy, and she's brought with her her very special guest and client, Jean. Now, Jean came in to see Darlene to relieve stress and anxiety. Please help me welcome my guests. Now, Jean, I'm going to start with you. Tell me a little bit about your stress and anxiety.
Well, I had a lot of it. I didn't know where it came from, but I knew that my hands shook. I had a difficult time eating. I was losing weight. And sometimes when I'd try to just talk to people, I would just freeze up.
Sure.
And it wasn't like me. I didn't like it.
Yes, and so did you see your physician first?
Oh, yes.
What did your physician say?
Said I was stressed.
So for stress, why did you want to come see a hypnotherapist?
Well, if the stress is inside my mind, then I needed to find somebody who could get in there and find out why it was going on, what to do about it, how to fix it.
Well, a hypnotherapist is certainly best for getting into the subconscious mind,
Yes,
if I do
yes.
say so myself.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find Darlene?
I found Darlene, I called HMI. And
How did you know about HMI
I
College of
looked them up
Hypnotherapy?
on the internet.
Oh, wow, so you called HMI?
I called HMI and said I would like to find myself a hypnotherapist, and could somebody help me? And they said they'd have somebody call me back, and she did.
Wow. So for stress and anxiety, what kind of an induction would you use for this client, Jean?
Well, when Jean came to me, it wasn't a matter of how deep she would go. It was how to keep her into a light state, because she was so stressed that she was on escape mode.
So she'd actually lose her voice.
She lost my, yeah,
So
she would.
what would you do for that?
So, well, in the cognitive area of before we would go into hypnosis, we discussed what the plan would be, and it was determined that she actually could visualize and see colors. And we would work on relieving that with imagery, because she could bring up things from her memory, even though she couldn't visualize, picture, or pretend.
Got it. Now, Jean, did you know that you were going so deep that you were losing Darlene's voice, or did Darlene have to catch it?
Well, she would once in a while, but it seemed that even if I went deep, things came up for me that I found out later she had said. It was pretty interesting.
That's really, really interesting. Now, tell me, even if you went so deep that you lost her voice, what kind of real relief did you get? What kind of tangible things can you tell us?
Color. Color was a big thing. Light blue seemed to come from somewhere and go across me, and various colors, purple.
Uh-huh.
Things that would represent strength, like those boulders came up and seemed to be me all of a sudden. Just strange things would come up, and I'd be pretty not asleep, but kind of in between sleep and awake.
Well, I have to just reference something to you said. Boy, you want to get into someone who could get into the subconscious mind. You came to the right place.
I did.
Can you teach us what type of imagery you were using that manifested these beautiful images that helped reduce the stress?
Yes, for Jean, one of the imageries after we discussed that she could visualize, and she had a beautiful place in nature that she would love to see, and she could bring up an imagination from a memory. Oh. So we took her into a beautiful mountain, and she walked along and saw a waterfall and crystalline boulders. And one of the journeys that she had, she walked up to the waterfall, and it was misting, and I brought in all of the colors, and she released her stress and anxiety into the mist.
What was that like for you?
It was like something inside of me pouring out. It was like when I'd take a breath in, I would feel calm. When I would take a breath out, I could actually, in my mind, see nasty things just going away, just kind of, and the mist took it. It pretty
That's very
powerful.
intense. And you both mentioned boulders. Talk to me about the boulders.
Then I had her approach the boulder, and this was after the progressive where she had this beautiful white light around her, felt completely safe and protected. And I had her lean against this beautiful crystalline boulder, and I described the colors that meant something to her. And she received a message from the boulder that we later talked about, and I
Hang
made
tight.
note.
What was the message that you got from the boulder?
She could probably explain it better. To me, it was like a melding of the boulder and I.
Yes. So did you have like the strength of the boulder?
That's how it felt. That's how it felt.
This is so beautiful. I'm imagining the whole thing in my mind. And yet I have to go back to Darlene and put your feet to the fire a little bit. You know, everybody who comes in for stress and anxiety carries it someplace different. Tell me the diagnostics that you use to help determine where the stress is in each and every one of your stress clients.
What I did with Jean's progressive is that I would start by creating a beautiful white light sensation, however she wanted to experience it. It could be an orb coming through the top of her head, and it would go through parts of her body, and I would describe it, and I would look for abreactions.
Looking for abreactions.
And
For
what-
those of us in the studio audience or at home, can you describe what's an abreaction in hypnotherapy language?
It would be a jerk or sensation, something that took her out of the calm state that she seemed to be in before. Any change. It could be fluttering of the eyes or a twitch or a movement. And so afterward, after it came down through the bottom, and later on, and I would make a note in my clinical notes for the next session. But before that, we would talk for a moment afterward, and she would describe, for example, when you were at my shoulders.
And I'm going to stop you right there and go right back to Jean. Where did you find the abreactions or the tightening or the fluttering or even the jerking motions in your body when you were having a progressive relaxation? Do you remember? Were you
Oh
feeling
yes,
it? Where were you
very,
feeling
very
it?
clearly. It could be my fingers,
Yes.
and it was a strange sensation. It was almost a fluttering. Very pleasant, very pleasant. Sometimes my feet, sometimes my shoulders, sometimes my forehead,
Yes.
certainly my face.
I want to talk about some of the results.
Okay.
You talked about having some rapid heartbeat, some
Oh,
shaking
yes.
in your hands,
Oh, yeah.
some difficult talking to people, and you didn't even know why. In real life, in a real waking state, after you worked with Darlene for a while, what was it like for you going back out of her office, back into your life?
Most of the time, for a very long time, I would be fine. Sometimes things would happen that would put me right back in. But she would give me a tape. And so I would listen to it, sometimes just to go to sleep at night, sometimes several times a day if I was having trouble.
When Jean came back and reported this, Darlene, were you able to give her any kind of anchors that she can use in the moment when she was out in her world and felt the rapid heartbeat, felt the shaking in the hands, felt the tightening in the voice?
We created a couple anchors. One of them was with her breathing. And I used the colors and the words that were important to her. So if she were ever in a setting, for example, that would create anything other than that peaceful, calm feeling that she wanted to have every time, that we all do, then that beautiful indigo for her, that purpley blue, would wash over all of her being, and she would see the word serenity, and she would release it with her breath without harm to anything or herself. And the breath work would create that for her. And the color, because she really relates to the color, and that word serenity
And
is
the word,
a
the
power
word.
word for her.
I love it. Were you skeptical at all about coming to see a hypnotist?
No.
Good. And what would you say to someone, maybe his or her physician has said, nothing wrong with you, just stress. What would you say about seeing a hypnotist to anyone who came back, one of your friends or family, and told you that's what his or her physician said?
I would really encourage them to find a hypnotist or tell them I'd try to help them find one.
That is the best message that I've heard. Well, I want to thank Jean, coming in and sharing your experience with us. And I also want to thank Darlene Levasseur-Melendez. Now everybody is going to want to know more about your practice and how to use this most beautiful imagery, hypnosis, and certainly the use of color in affecting words and phrases like serenity. And you can reach Darlene Levasseur-Melendez on hmigrads.com. It appears that we're out of time for today. Again, thank you, Darlene. Thank you, Jean, for joining us. I also want to thank everyone in my studio audience and all of you at home watching the show. My name is Lisa Mackenberg, and I hope you will join us next time when we meet more people and explore how they are using hypnosis today. Please stay tuned. We have a lot more coming up for you on HMI Web TV. That's Hypnotherapy Television, 24/7. Thank you. That was really, really good. Things. If you have just joined us, I have as my second guests Darlene Levasseur-Melendez, and she's an honors grad of HMI College of Hypnotherapy, and she's brought with her her very special guest and client, Jean. Now, Jean came in to see Darlene to relieve stress and anxiety. Please help me welcome my guests.
Just talk to people, I would just freeze up. And it wasn't like me. I didn't like it.
Yes, and so did you see your physician first?
Oh, yes. Oh,
What did your
yes,
physician say?
Said I was stressed.
So for stress, why did you want to come see a hypnotherapist?
Well, if the stress is inside my mind, then I needed to find somebody who could get in there and find out why it was going on, what to do about it, how to fix it.
Well, a hypnotherapist is certainly best for getting into the subconscious mind,
Yes,
if I do
yes.
say so myself. How did you find Darlene?
I found Darlene, I called HMI. And
How did you know about? Now, Jean, I'm going to start with you. Tell me a little bit about your stress and anxiety.
Well, I had a lot of it. I didn't know where it came from, but I knew that my hands shook. I had a difficult time eating. I was losing weight. And sometimes when I try to just
Welcome back to Hypnosis Today, where we explore how people are using hypnosis to achieve remarkable